Before we get started today, a quick reminder that merch is available for the Plant Yourself podcast, and you can find it at plantyourself.com/merch. That's lowercase MERCH, short for merchandise. Again, plantyourself.com/merch. I think it's adorable. I'm biased because it's Plant Yourself merch and because my daughter Yael Zivan is the one who designed it and will be receiving any of the profits that come if you buy it. So again, plantyourself.com/merch. And today's show is a reminder of how much our food choices and our food behaviors and our food habits, our shopping, our gardening, our cooking, our sharing can really make a difference in the world. And it often seems like it's not going to do that the world is so big and the problems are so huge that it's easy for me at least to get a sense of helplessness, of overwhelm, of, well, I'll just do the best I can, but kind of a pessimism. And every so often, actually a lot, really, I come across people like today's guest, Lois Ellen Frank, PhD, whose life mission is so entwined with making the world a better place. And there's almost, like at the same time, she sees the big picture and she's also like almost myopic, like heads down, just working to make this thing happen. And it's a beautiful combination. It reminds me a little bit of the energy of eagle vision, where they can see the whole sky from however high they fly, and also be able to have the clarity to look at like a single mouse scurrying along the ground that they're going to pick up for their dinner. And I think that's Lois, with one perspective on the global and one perspective on what's right in front of her, in her kitchen, in her garden, in her community. And the cookbook we're talking about today is much more than a cookbook. It's a book of philosophy. It's a call to action. It's a book of community and comfort. And it's called Seed to Plate, Soil to Sky, Modern Plant-Based Recipes Using Native American Ingredients. So let's get into it. Without further ado, Lois Ellen Frank, welcome back to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have a conversation about your beautiful new cookbook, and it's called Seed to Plate, Soil to Sky. So maybe you could begin by just telling us what the title means to you, what you wanted to convey.
Well, Chef Walter and I work a lot in Native American communities. And what we have found over time is that plants are a big part of health and wellness, and many of the diabetes educators and community health representatives and doctors and nurses are really encouraging people, not only in Native communities, sort of all across the globe, let's say, to eat more plants as part of a healthy diet, a healthy heart diet, keeping weight under control. And what we have found is that a lot of people really want to cook plants and they want to eat more plants, but maybe they weren't exposed to them growing up. Maybe they didn't have a mom that cooked a lot of plants. Maybe they had a mom that cooked green beans till they weren't green anymore. And so how would they know how to cook plants? How would they even know the array of the amazing plants? And we decided that we were going to focus on 8 plants. So each chapter is one of these 8 plants, which I call the Magic 8. And as we were thinking about these wonderful plants and really giving them the respect and the reverence, let's say, we decided that, the idea of these, the seed to plate and how the soil helps them grow to sky. And so we came up with this name. And then if you look at sort of the subtitle, Modern Plant-Based Recipes Using Native American Ingredients. So it really is a celebration of these inherently indigenous Native American and American, because some of these ingredients originated in what outside of what is now the United States. But it really is about a celebration of these plants and helping people of all colors and all nations to incorporate these indigenous foods into their diet for health and wellness.
Beautiful, beautiful. I found myself wondering as I was reading, especially the introduction, whether you think of this book, and Chef Walter thinks of this book as predominantly for the Native American community to kind of re-fall in love with its own TEK, traditional, what is this?
Ecological knowledge, TEK, very good. Yep,
traditional ecological knowledge.
Right.
Or is it more for, outsiders to have an appreciation of these indigenous foods, or both?
It actually is both. Chef Walter and I are very inclusive, and we believe, I always like to use the analogy, let's say we're a community living on the river, and we're really good stewards of that river. We take care of it. We don't pollute it. But our neighbors to the north don't, and our neighbors to the south don't. How much of a difference do we actually make? And so this is really about inclusive. When we talk about sustainability and we talk about the one earth, the one mother that we have, and we talk about health and wellness, this is all people, because if every color, the 4 colors of corn, yellow, white, black, and red, don't come together, right, for this one earth, this one turtle island, this idea of food sovereignty, this idea of sustainability, this idea of TEK, then we're not making a difference, because it has to be everybody to help the earth and regenerate the earth and re-indigenize these plants and revitalize them and protect them from genetic modification and use them in food and food dishes for health and wellness. It really has to be everyone.
So you use the word sovereignty, and your co-author doesn't like that word.
No. Well,
right?
He thinks it's rooted in European, which it is, the original definition, if I were to sort of simplify it, would mean the right to sufficient, healthy, culturally appropriate food. Okay, that's sort of the European definition. But, when we look at Native communities and we look at what Native American food sovereignty is, we can add some other things to that. Food justice, food security, right? Not being scared, where's your next meal coming from? Environmental justice. You can't hunt and you can't plant and you can't harvest and you can't gather foods unless you have an environment that's clean and safe. TEK, it's all dependent on TEK. Where to harvest, when to harvest, how does climate or weather changes affect these foods and the harvesting of these foods? And then, the idea that communities really can produce and grow and harvest their own food, but also buy those foods from each other. If you have apricot trees and you have hundreds of pounds of apricots and I have an acre of land and I'm growing chilies, you and I can trade. We can exchange what we both specialize in to round out our diet, for health and wellness. So it really is about vendors and growers. And then, this whole concept of a Native American food sovereignty or a food sovereignty in general is to reconnect back to the land, to the community, to the culture. And, there's a lot of movements. There's here in New Mexico, we have wonderful northern New Mexico farmers that are stewards. And, it really is about everybody taking a form of responsibility. One of the things that Walter and I love to contextualize is that everyone is an Earth citizen. Everyone is an Earth person. And when everybody becomes a member of the Earth, indigenous to the Earth, we all become stewards, and we all have an obligation to take care of that. So we really focus on everybody reconnecting to their own indigenous roots, whatever that may be, whatever cultural lineage or earth lineage that is, and then taking responsibility and making a difference so that we have a safe place for food to grow and nourish us, for the next 7 generations, for many generations to come.
Mm. Yeah, and one of the lines that really struck me was this motto of one of the food sovereignty summits in Wisconsin, which said, "How sovereign are we if we can't feed ourselves?" And there's this idea like if I can't really be sovereign if I'm not if my community at least isn't self-sufficient. So if I have to get up every day and go to a job that I may or may not like, working for a company whose values I may or may not support, who may be objectifying or destroying land somewhere or extracting wealth from people around the world, I don't really have a choice if I can't feed myself. Right? Like that's the basis of me being able to say no or yes.
There is a choice, oddly enough, even as a consumer. So I'll do an example of, me personally. We're doing a training for health and wellness this coming Monday, and they want to do a wild rice saute. Traditionally, I would buy the wild rice from native communities that harvest it on a canoe, and that supports them and that supports the indigenous wild rice. However, this is to feed young children, and because of the last year where it was very dry and it was hard to get the canoes out, they couldn't harvest wild rice. The price of wild rice went up. So I had to make a conscious decision, and I went to several different stores looking for a wild rice mix. Now, most wild rice is paddy grown. That's why it's black, as opposed to the brownish color. And I ended up, 3 stores later, because I was doing my research, at Natural Grocers, and they had one wild rice, which was one price, which was not organic. And then they had another, which was a blend of different rices that was organic. And the difference in price was 40 cents. And so I made a conscious decision to spend 40 cents more to feed the people in this training, to educate them on the difference between rice that was not certified organic, which may or may not be GMO, or rice that was certified organic. Granted, it isn't completely 100% native produced, but it is produced in a very sustainable way, and decided to purchase the organic. So by making that decision and spending 40 cents more per pound, I bought 4 packages. I am a steward, okay, of supporting organic, so no pesticides, non-GMO, because if it's certified organic, it can't be GMO, to buy rice to help feed children in the early childhood training that we're doing on Monday. So am I making a difference with that one decision? Absolutely. Absolutely. I am making a difference. I think I'm making a difference. Maybe you want to talk about that. So even as a consumer, we have a choice. Do we want to buy, organic or commercial? Do we want to support our local farms? I totally support my local farms. I'm going to farmers market for this training to buy all the greens and the sprouts and the microgreens. Or do we want to buy something commercial where people are not paid a fair wage and it's rape and pillage and we're polluting the earth? And so I would advocate, if we can afford it, that we make that conscious choice to support the small farms and the organic farms for sustainability reasons and to protect the earth. And support those companies that might be a B Corp or have ethics, as opposed to cutting down the rainforest to grow genetically modified soy. That's another example.
Got it. Yeah, and I'm thinking, like, as I'm hearing you, like one of the things that actually feels really good about this cookbook is that it's very down to earth and practical. Because I've had many conversations on this podcast with thinkers and leaders in the indigenous decolonization movement, and there have been many of those conversations where they keep saying, no, you're asking the wrong question, you're using the wrong language, and it's constant. Like, I can tell, like, I'm coming from a framework that simply is not quite working, and I think there may be something of that here as well. But when we get down to grind the blue cornmeal, mix it with corn masa flour and water and salt, that we don't have to be, I don't have to get it right philosophically if I'm making good food from ethically sourced ingredients.
I think that's a great realization on your part. Yes, we can, purchase sustainable ingredients and make sustainable choices, and then eat good tasting, healthy food and feel good about it. We've always tried to keep in mind all levels of economics, what people can afford, what they have access to. There are certainly many food deserts, which would mean if you live in an urban area or a very remote area, what do you have access to? So, we made some very conscious decisions with those criteria and factors in mind, and that's what we're helping to promote and helping to advocate.
Great. Shall we talk about food?
Oh, yeah, I love food.
That's good. I'm glad. This would be a terrible time in life to realize that wasn't true.
Yeah.
So the first food group is corn, and you have a line that really took my breath away, which is the miracle of corn is that it grows only with the interaction of humans.
Yes.
And I was thinking of that as kind of a downside, like, well, it was this wild grain and people came and, stamped all over it and manipulated it. And you're putting a very different spin on that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it means that, as human, we have to have a relationship with this food because it can't grow without us. It's an annual. It is dependent. It can't pollinate on its own. It needs help with the pollination. And so it is actually, a wonderful thing that we can have a relationship with this corn and save its seeds and really revere how it can have nutrient. It can feed you in a physical way, a sustenance way, but it can also feed you in a very spiritual way. And it's a fairly magical plant. It really is a fairly magical plant. And I'm not talking about, just the genetically modified corn that's being grown either to feed cattle or for corn, high fructose corn syrup. I'm talking about the blue corn that grows in the desert with elongated roots, or the beautiful Seneca white corn that grows to feed many East Coast tribes, and how, it's mounded as opposed to here in the Southwest where we waffle so that there's water for this corn. It's pretty amazing that it's been able to adapt to its environment and produce food. I love corn. I love the blue corn that grows here in the Southwest. But, I also use the white corn that's grown here as well. We have different, earlier this week, we did a beautiful organic white corn hominy, the hominy dish from the corn chapter. The pozole, we call it pozole here in New Mexico, just to confuse people. But pozole is really hominy corn in all other parts of the United States. But we used an organic white corn pozole, and we added red chili and azafran, and it was delicious. It was pure and simple. And so all hominy corn, just, for your listeners to be able to understand, is a treated corn. It's an ash corn or a nixtamalized corn, as opposed to...
I was going to ask you how to pronounce that.
Right. So nixtamalization or nixtamalizing means you're using ash to boil the corn and then loosen the skin, and then that skin comes off, and then that corn that's left on the inside, if it's dried whole, becomes hominy or pozole. If it's ground, it becomes masa harina or masa that's used for tortillas or tamales. So there's also corn where you grind the whole kernel. So that would include, all the skin and all the other parts. And that's used a lot in baking or the mushes that we do. So different applications.
Gotcha. And so when you talk about like the hominy or the pozole, is that a corn product that people can make themselves? Is that too, or would you recommend just buying, nixtamalized corn?
We did include a recipe of how to do it. I did test it multiple times with different kinds of ash. You can make it yourself. It is laborious, but it is really exciting to do. So, for those people that can't or don't want to, it is totally accessible, and you can buy it online or in stores to use in the recipes. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that struck me about that sentence that I quoted back to you is, I've spent a long time sort of hanging out with the permaculture community that kind of they look down a little bit on annuals, right? It's like, you got to spread, you got to weed and do all this stuff, and it's not really natural. But when I think about when you talk about being in a relationship with it, like I can't think of, these growers, these vast growers of, fields of corn or anything that almost everything that I eat is an annual, right? I don't think of them as thinking that they are in relation with a plant, that they're the owners of it. It's a commodity. But this idea of, okay, it doesn't grow without me, that means I owe it something and it owes me something. There's a kind of reciprocity that's very different from the way I think about annuals.
Right. So I'm going to reframe that for you and say that annuals are like families. So corn, beans, and squash, all of which are annuals, are a family. They like to grow together. They want to grow together. We have to have a relationship with them. They will nurture the soil. So it's permaculture at its best because beans give nitrogen, corn needs nitrogen, squash has big leaves, which shades the ground, keeping out weeds and keeping moisture in, especially in arid or desert environments. And then if we plant them together and we allow them to be the family that they want to be, then in return, they provide us and those three alone with almost every nutrient known to sustain human life. We could pretty much live off those three and those three alone. So when we make a relation when we become part of that family, we nurture that family. We are the parents, let's say. We're having a relationship with that family. And in exchange, they provide nutrients for us. And I don't know if you've ever gone out and harvested a squash or harvested an ear of corn or harvested beans, but it's for me, at least, it's completely joyous. You have your basket and you're putting these things in the basket and you're feeling rewarded for the relationship that you had with these plants for that whole season. Tomatoes are very much like that as well. I'm a big perennial fan, and I have in my front yard what we call an edible landscape. So I have choke cherries, and I've got wild currants, and I've got yucca, and all of these come back every year. I do help them by what I would call acceptance gardening. So I accept what nature has, but I help it. I water it. I trim it, and in response, I harvest approximately 33 pounds of chokecherries from my front north side of my house every year. And then I make chokecherry juice and chokecherry syrup from that. So I am a big fan of an edible landscape as opposed to grass, which I think does nothing and doesn't uses up water that other plants could have. But when I plant my annuals, I also have a relationship with them. And I find that relationship extremely valuable and extremely rewarding. I don't know if I would use the word own. I would use the word in a relationship with, like a family. Like I have a brother and a sister. I don't own them.
Yeah.
They're my family. And so I think of the plants more like that. You don't own them, but you are in a family with them.
All right. Well, also, like, if I go to the store and buy burpees every year, that's I've paid for them. That's a little different than, and they're wonderful. They're disease resistant. They're water, whatever, but they're also hybrids, so they're not going to produce offspring. Like this, it was different when we planted, our beans and we let a bunch of them dry. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, which ones are we going to plant next year? Like, I don't have to go back. It was $1.49. Like it wasn't like, like I'm Bill Gates or something, financial genius. But there was something really special about choosing this little jar of beans that were going to get planted next year.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I never use hybrids. I do on occasion. I'm more of a fan and more of an advocate for heirlooms, where you could save the seeds and plant them. They're not sterile. Hybrids were introduced by seed companies because they wanted you every year to go back and buy those seeds, which, okay, brilliant on their part. But I think in native tradition and, the ancestral tradition of some of these very sacred plants, it's always been about planting them and then keeping some of those seeds for next year so that you have them and they're safe. And, seeds were a form of commerce, right? We could trade seeds. You have this really neat, black and white bean, like a cattle bean or an Anasazi bean. And I really want that bean. And I grow a really, really nice form of a heirloom black bean. And so you and I could trade seeds and then we could yield both of those plants the following year.
Yeah. And in answer to your question, I have harvested beans. I have harvested squash. The raccoons have always beat me to the corn. I have not, in 20 years, I have not pulled a ear of corn that was worth eating off of a stalk.
Oh, well, I guess they need to eat too, and corn is delectable.
Yep. So the next one I think I want to talk about is squash. And just looking at the picture in the cookbook of all those different kinds, like if I go to the supermarket, I can get zucchini, I can get yellow squash. In the fall, I can get butternut, acorn, and some place will have a big cardboard box of like ornamental squashes that aren't, they don't even think we're supposed to eat those. They're just pretty.
Oh, the gourds, you mean, a gourd as opposed to...
A gourd, or even like, the sort of, the big ones, they're all, they're food too, if you want. But when you show like the varieties of all these different kinds of squashes that are available if you grow your own, it's pretty exciting.
Our farmers market has all of these, and some of our supermarkets have, especially during the winter, that's why we tried to delineate between winter squash, where you don't eat the outside. That would include your acorn and your butternut and your kabocha and, your spaghetti squashes, the delicata, and then the summer squash, which would be the zucchini, the yellow squash, the green striped or Mexican squash. Those would be eaten more in the summer. Most supermarkets, you can get them all year round, but those would be the seasons, let's say.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, one of the innovations that I'm so excited about is the photo of the different squashes on the skewer, where it's not these, like, I always did it in chunks, and so inevitably something would burn, something would be raw inside, and something would fall off into the grill. And you have done, it almost looks like cuts of deli meat, so that each skewer goes through each tongue of zucchini or or yellow squash like 4 or 5 times.
Right, and it cooks very quickly. It's delicious. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, where'd you get that? Did you invent that, or is that a thing?
I'm with you on, putting the little pieces on the skewer and they rotate or they fall off or they don't cook. And so this cooks very quickly. It's very delicate. It's not that hard to do. It's beautiful and it tastes good.
Great. Anything else from the squash chapter that you kind of want to highlight?
I love squash. The pumpkins, some of the sweet recipes. The scones are delicious. The pumpkin pignon nut cake, very easy to do, and the pumpkin pie with a pignon pecan crust. More and more people are having gluten issues, and so we tried to do quite a few gluten-free recipes to accommodate that. And make room for people to be able to enjoy things without saying, no, I'm gluten-free.
Gotcha. And I just want to just throw in that the photos are as beautiful as I'm sure the food tastes.
Well, we did all the food photography. So we have...
How many pictures do you take? Yeah, I'm curious, like how many shots do you take to get one that can go in the book? Like,
so we do a lot of times we'll do variations, like the pumpkin pignon nut cake. We photographed the whole thing, and then after we photographed the whole thing, we cut slices and we did several different platings of those slices. So each recipe. What I will say is, after we photographed it, we ate everything. So we planned our lunches, our photo shoot lunches, so we would have balanced meals. So we ate everything that we photographed in the cookbook and shared it with neighbors and friends and tasters and take home. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So chilies are interesting. And I've discovered, my family and I moved to Spain this past year.
Yeah.
And I was shocked at how unspicy the food is here. But they use a lot of peppers. They have these pepper tapas dishes where they look really spicy, but they turn out to be very sweet. Seems like different cuisines have very different opinions about what makes the right pungency of a pepper.
Well, yeah, that's interesting that you find, Spanish food not spicy. In order to get the health benefits from the chili, you don't necessarily need heat. I'm a little bit more of a savory than a very picante. I know Chef Walter doesn't like heat at all. But occasionally it's a little bit of spice for me is nice. Here in New Mexico, our state question is red or green. So we definitely are asking you, which chili do you want? Because you're going to get one or the other. But I think savory is good, and we don't necessarily need to be using, those really, really hot chilies. We didn't really include any, of the ghost chili or the habaneros. They're just really, really spicy. Certainly, some cuisine. So, I think the cuisine of this area, while it can get very hot, doesn't necessarily have to be hot. So we really tried to focus on not burning the palate and doing savory versions of many of these chili infused recipes.
Yeah, and I have to say, I went through maybe a 3 year period of like wanting to like grow and find the hottest sauces. And looking back, it really was kind of a macho thing. Like I really didn't enjoy the food I was eating so much. It didn't feel like a partnership with the food. It felt like me trying to overcome it. So I really like this idea. Like we have nothing to prove here. We're just trying to all kind of get along and have fun.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So I think we've got 5 left. What would you like to talk about? I'll let you lead.
Oh gosh. Tomatoes, I think one of my I included for the first time in a cookbook, and I've been doing this for quite a long time, is I make an heirloom tomato sauce. So at our farmer's market, if the farmer has tomatoes that are overripe or dented, maybe bruised a little, they sell them for less, and they're perfect for tomato sauce. So I buy the less cost tomatoes that are dented or ripe, and I just, every week for about 4 weeks here in this, eco zone in northern New Mexico, it's usually starts at the end of August, beginning of September, and kind of goes all the way through. Although sometimes I could start in August. And I can approximately 150 pounds of tomatoes a week. I do several hundred jars, and then I use those jars in my catering company throughout the year. So the heirloom tomato sauce is something, and I think the art of canning is fading. A lot of people aren't doing it as much anymore, but it is pretty amazing because then right now we're, in February, I can whip out a jar of my heirloom tomato sauce, which is perfectly ripe, organic, locally grown, anywhere from yellow to orange to green to red tomatoes, and make some sort of delicious dish in the middle of winter when most people, if they are eating tomatoes, they're eating very mealy tomatoes that are not delectable and delicious. So I think that's a big thing. This idea of seasonality, either extending the season through freezing or canning or drying, and enjoying foods in their perfect season. The cherry tomato and arugula, or the heirloom tomato salad, buying perfectly. I mean, now is not the time to make that salad. That salad is best in summer, and then you savor and enjoy the season and the plants that are naturally ripened during those seasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Potatoes
are a staple. We obviously had to cut down and pick our favorite potato recipes. Potatoes can be used in a million different ways, but they're amazing, from a stew to, a sweet potato masa, or a tamale, or just a perfectly baked potato. I think the herb roasted potatoes are one that's very, 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 we use that a lot at Red Mesa.
Right. I'm curious whether, is there any canning of any sort in TEK? Or was it all seasonality?
Well, canning is a European method for extending the season, but Native people did have what your listeners might know of as a root cellar. So they would dig down, or they would have an adobe house and store their melons or their squashes or their dried corn in those, earthen houses or dug down to extend the season. Squash could winter over to as late as May, and certainly dried corn, could winter over for months and months and months. So, the idea of extending the season has always been a part of an indigenous way of being to make sure that food or food security was there, because, certainly during the winter, it's very difficult to have, fresh things. We do have, some sprouts and microgreens and lettuces now that can be grown inside, but there was always methods for extending the season. I think now I freeze and I dry. Those are probably the biggest methods that I use.
Gotcha. And I guess for people who are scared of canning, for botulism or whatever, I think the tomato is one of the safest ones because of its high acidity. Right.
It does have high acidity, and you can tell right away whether it's sealed or not. You could actually hear the jars popping. I do a water bath canning process. So I actually take the sauce and make it and put it in the jars, and then boil those jars for about 45 minutes, let them rest. And then our water here is very hard, so we have lots of minerals. So I have to take, white vinegar to wipe off the minerals that have collected on the outside of the jars. But other than that, for me, that is a very safe method. And, the rule of thumb is one season, but, those jars could last longer than one season if you had to.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, do you have any photos of your hundreds and hundreds of jars sitting there?
No, I don't. I actually, they're in their little canning boxes and, raised off the floor and stacked in our cool. We have a cold storage closet that we put food in. So.
Gotcha. Well, so from tomatoes to potatoes, so you talk about them as the buried treasure.
Yes, they're amazing. I think one of the most underrepresented is the sweet potato, and the stats on sweet potatoes are amazing in terms of health and nutrition. I'm going to read you some stats because sweet potatoes are amazing. So here's 10 health benefits: improves digestion, promotes healthy weight, treats inflammation, boosts the immune system, relieves asthma, treats bronchitis, reduces arthritis, treats stomach ulcers, prevents dehydration, and controls diabetes. And so, that doesn't mean those sweet potato fries that everybody's like, well, but I'm eating a sweet potato in fried in oil with lots of salt. So I've started to try and incorporate the sweet potato into soups and bowls and, different things for health and wellness. They're just amazing. They're really, really healthy. But all potatoes are healthy. They give you, really good carbohydrates and but the sweet potato is sort of one of those buried gems that if we can incorporate a little bit more into our diet, where it's going to be good for us in the long term.
Yeah, and I've grown sweet potatoes almost by accident, and there's always, you cannot harvest all the sweet potatoes. There's always going to be another huge root under there.
That's great.
So
yeah.
So I love the look of the mash, right? It looks like one of the simplest thing you could possibly do. It's like 5 ingredients. Yeah. All you do is cut them, right? Poke holes in the potatoes and bake them, and then just peel them and add some other stuff. And this looks fabulous.
Yeah, it's good. It's delicious. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I have a friend who introduced me to, I think they were the Japanese sweet potatoes, the purple ones.
I love those.
He sprinkled cocoa powder on it, had me close my eyes, and I thought I was eating brownies.
Delicious, yes. Yeah. The Japanese sweet potato are amazing. And, that brings up another really interesting, when we think about health and wellness. But, National Geographic did these blue zones. And they've started to, there's now a new series that we can watch. I think it's called The Blue Zones. I think it's 4 episodes. But it talks about these areas where people are living well past 100. Why are they living past 100? And one of the episodes is Okinawa, Japan. And everybody thought it was the diet of rice and fish, but it's not. it's the Japanese sweet potato. And another area was Loma Linda, California. And they were like, why are people living so long here? And it's the 7-Day Adventists. And it's because they're eating a plant-based diet. And so, the more plant forward we can be and the more plants we can incorporate into our diet, the healthier and the longer we're going to live. So there is evidence now. Science is starting to say more and more plants, guys, more and more and more and more. So, we really try and encourage people to add, we call it Eat the Rainbow. And I don't mean the colored candies, because now they're using that term, eat the rainbow. What I mean is eat the rainbow with plants. And your meal should not just be brown and white. Your meal should be other colors, yellows and reds and greens and purples and browns and whites and, just all these different amazing blues and purple. The more color, the healthier it is. And the colors come from the plants.
Yeah, I think food marketers understand that, right? That's why the Skittles and M&Ms look so good to us, because we're supposed, you look at a cornucopia of fresh plants, and we're supposed to think that's where it's at.
Right. Yeah, so we don't want to eat the rainbow with the M&Ms and the Skittles. Yeah, that we want to not be the focus. We want to definitely do it through, different plants, yellows and oranges. Oh, just color. Yeah.
Right on. So another whole category is vanilla, and I have to admit, I did not realize vanilla was of Native American origin. I thought it was, Madagascar or Ceylon or wherever.
Tahiti, Indonesia, so vanilla is grown now in other parts of the world. Vanilla is another really special plant. First of all, it's the smallest seed in the world. Second of all, it comes from an orchid, and it's only fertile for anywhere from 4 to 24 hours. And so here in the Americas, there's a special bee that knows when the vanilla is fertile, and it fertilizes the plant. In all other parts of the world, they have to use what represents either a hummingbird, like a hummingbird beak, or a bee to hand pollinate vanilla. And that's why vanilla is so expensive, because they don't have the indigenous bee in Madagascar or Tahiti to fertilize the vanilla. So it has to be hand pollinated, which makes it very costly to do, because you have to have human to do that.
Can you buy Mexican vanilla? I've never seen it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Huh.
Just
Google
Mexican vanilla and it'll come up. Yep. And it's delicious.
Right.
Yeah, it's delicious.
The thing that really struck me is, like, this is one, like it almost felt like inbred royalty. We have to do so much. Like, the plant is so helpless; it can't grow on its own. It needs to lean against a tree or something. Right. It needs to be pollinated, and is very this. This is a plant with requirements.
Yeah, but it's also the rewards. Vanilla is one of the most prized, and that's why they make a synthetic version, essences in the world. There's vanilla candles and vanilla scents and vanilla. But true vanilla, I think. I love the vanilla bean paste. I use that a lot, but also the extract. It's just amazing.
Yeah. It's funny that, the word vanilla is a synonym for, like, ordinary, plain, bland. I'm not sure where that came from.
Yeah, it's certainly amazing. I think one of my most favorite recipes is the vanilla grilled peaches. That is really, really tasty. But also the vanilla and the cacao sunflower skillet cakes. Those are amazing because they'll last for a couple of days and you can eat them like energy bars. They're really easy to make and very, very nutritious and delicious. So,
gotcha. I'm noticing that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and that, naturally morphs into cacao. And we call vanilla and cacao the sweet sisters, because you rarely ever see vanilla without cacao or cacao without vanilla. They sort of go hand in hand. So we call them the sweet sisters, because most desserts or chocolate dishes, chocolate desserts have vanilla in it as well.
Well, but neither of those is like sweet, though. When I think about things that I grew up eating that were chocolate or vanilla flavored, they were mostly sugar, right?
Right.
How did native cuisines make this stuff palatable? Chocolate is very bitter, and vanilla is just subtle.
Right, it is subtle. You can use sweeteners like agave or maple. Those would be natural indigenous sweeteners to the Americas. We do have access now to sugar. When we grill a peach or we grill a pineapple, or we take a strawberry and dip it, those fruits naturally have their own fructose, their own natural sugars. So the chocolate, the rule of thumb is the darker the chocolate, the more bitter it is, the less sugar it has, but the healthier it is. It's got those flavonoids and it's got all those nutrients. So I think there's a balance between very sweet. I personally am not a big sweet sugar person. I like my desserts more on the savory side. So again, this is going to reflect those tastes. And earlier this week, we did a indigenous food class at IAI. It was right before Valentine's Day, and so we did the dark chocolate torte, which we served with the coconut whipped cream and the chocolate sauce, and people went crazy. And then when we were taking the torte out of the pie pan, some of that delicious gluten-free crust, which is made from pecan and pine nuts, fell off. And so we took that in a spoon and then drizzled that on top of the chocolate cake. And it was Valentine's Day heaven for everyone that ate it. So it was really, really good. Yeah, really, really good.
So there is one ingredient listed as part of the chocolate section that might be my favorite line from any cookbook ever. And it's 4 perfectly overripe bananas. I love that so much, because it's such a contradiction, right? But I understood instantly what you meant, and I started thinking, like, in what ways am I perfectly over something? Like it just felt very, very validating. I can't tell you why.
Well, most people would tend to toss what I consider perfectly overripe bananas out. But these are the ones that you want to freeze, and these are perfect for that chocolate and ice cream. Or, a lot of times we'll do the berry and ice cream, which was the alternative in there. You could do it with blueberry if you didn't want chocolate in there. We do another one, which we call Chunky Monkey, and we add the chocolate chips with the peanut butter. Oh, it's delicious. It's a dairy-free, delectable version of perfectly overripe bananas. So it's great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about that I haven't asked before we say goodbye?
I just want to really, sometimes, when you think about health and wellness, it becomes overwhelming. But there's ways to make baby steps to maybe stop drinking a high sugary soda, or, something that is fried, like in the chip or snack family, and really take small steps. In one of the recipes, we peeled the skin off the potatoes, and I was like, well, we can't waste those skins. Just put those skins in the oven and make them really crispy, and you have your own little, yummy, crunchy snack. And so, I think Chef Walter and I are zero waste. We're very conscious of waste as chefs. We're very conscious of the cost of food. We want all people, all colors, all ages to be healthy. And, we really want to honor and revere the wisdom of the ancestors and pass on. And that's why it's so beautiful that you actually read the cookbook, because I think when you read it, it brings an educational factor into what you eat. And, the reason education is knowledge is because once you have it, you have a choice. You can ignore it or you can embrace it and use it throughout your life. And so we really want to encourage people to become stewards and be sustainable and be healthy and honor the foods of the ancestors, but also the earth, so that we have all of these things for future generations.
Yeah, because I hear so much about so much indigenous wisdom is lost, has been lost, is being lost. But there's something about the seeds and the plants that are kind of like, it's still in their DNA.
Yeah.
And it feels like as we rediscover it and honor those plants, we can kind of like indigenous wisdom was created at some point. It didn't, it wasn't dropped from the heavens. It was created by people living in the land. There's no reason to think that if we develop this respectful, mutual relationship with these plants, that we can't get it again.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. So tell people the name of the cookbook again, where they could find it, and how they can follow you if they are interested.
Okay. So it's Seed to Plate, Soil to Sky, modern plant-based recipes using Native American ingredients. It's available pretty much everywhere, booksellers, online, our website, cooking schools, stores. We are on Facebook and Instagram. The name of our company is Red Mesa Cuisine. So you can follow us on both of those. We try and post regularly, although both Chef Walter and I are not millennials, so it's a little harder. So be patient if we're not posting every day and every minute of every day. We're working chefs, so we are working a lot. But we would love you to, like us and follow us and reach out. We also have a website, which is www.redmesacuisine.com. You can see some videos.
Spell Mesa?
MESA. So Red, REDMESA CUISINE.com. RedMesaCuisine.com.
Beautiful. Awesome. And I'll put links to those in the show notes.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful cookbook. It's an heirloom cookbook. I think is one you're going to want to get the original hardcover. I don't think it's. I mean, I don't have it. I'm because I'm here in Spain, so I got everything though digitally, and I'm sad that I can't take it into the kitchen and fold it and get stains on it.
Yeah.
But my next trip to the States, I'll pick one up and schlep it back with me.
Okay. Oh, Howie, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, what a pleasure! What a fun conversation. Now I'm hungry. It's 8:00 at night here, and I don't have anything cooked. So I think I'm gonna microwave some potatoes and try something.
Okay. Thank you.
Lois, Ellen, Frank, thank you so much for all you do and for taking the time today.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.
And that's a wrap. Show notes for today's episode are available at plantyourself.com/579. Quick reminder, merch available. Clothing, coffee mugs, tea towels. I don't know what's up there. Go check it out. Plantyourself.com/merch, MERCH. It takes you to one of these Printify, Etsy type places where my daughter has posted a bunch of products that will help you proudly represent the idea of planting yourself in the world, whatever that means to you. In movement news, been ramping up the training in preparation for a beach tournament, nationals in Alicante, Spain in mid-March, and did a lot of stair work today. Yesterday I played paddle tired because the day before I spent about 3 hours playing beach ultimate, and I was not bending my knees, and my partner and I got thrashed. But I'm going to remedy that. We're going to take some lessons, and I have no doubt that we're going to come back out on top, and then we'll keep finding more and more challenging opponents to play. So hopefully we'll continue to lose about 49% of our games on the way to eventual mastery. So I can't think of anything else that's going on here right now. Still deciding whether I'm going to go back to the States in mid-April for a lovely Ultimate Frisbee tournament, see my old teammates, see Josh down in New Orleans. The tournament's in New Orleans called Fire on the Bayou. A lot going on here, and plane tickets are pretty expensive, and I try not to, use carbon frivolously. But I do miss these guys, and there is some stuff I could get done regarding our storage unit. I'm going to bring back a bunch of our cookbooks instead of just, buying them new here from Amazon.es, and take care of a bunch of other stuff and maybe see some folks. So I haven't decided yet. Maybe if a really cheap ticket falls in my lap, I'll be back in the States in April. Otherwise, not sure when next. So that's about it for this week. Thank you for listening. And as always, be well, my friends. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song, Sabali Dawn, The Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself Podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Brittany Porter, Dominic Maurer, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatterley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Behrens, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Filkanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elsbeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Landry, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Kelly Cameron, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Bennett, Gila Cert, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carolyn Argentati, Jody Friesner, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Val Linneman, Nick Harper, Bandana Charlie, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Copel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Sharon Hirschman, Linda Ayat, Holm Hedegaard, Isa Tuzinwa, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Olakoski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Marani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Peter W. Evans, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Lori Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Emily Iconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan Picorni, Stephen Leenan, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Bilberry Elf, Marjorie Lewis, Tricia Adams, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunmarit Hagan, Tracy Gullidge, Laura Heaton, Meg from Mama Says, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Paranganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught of Edible Musings, Erin Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Naik, Erica Piedra, Danielle Roberts, Michael Lushton, Sarah Johnson, Catherine Floyd, for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for now. As always, be well, my friends.